Broadcasting live on the Ops Lens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.
Another emotional day as we get started here. Patriotically Correct Radio. Welcome to our Mojo 50 listeners, our iHeartRadio listeners, and if you're viewing us, you know you're watching us do a radio show on the Ops Lens app. Possibly on our YouTube channel, which we don't promote very often because that's basically just for us to archive our stuff. We broadcast live on several social media things, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that. But the Ops Lens app is really important because it gives you the opportunity then to opine back with us and to tell the story, because we all know that the media hides a lot of stuff. And we know that there's a lot of false reporting, and we know that there's a lot of unreporting of incidents that happens because the media doesn't want to show certain things that might be objective and tell the whole truth because they have a specific narrative that they want to get along with. So independent journalism is very important. We see independent journalists all the way, by the way, getting attacked. Also, we saw that woman the other night on the train platform when they were rioting down at the jail and breaking windows. There's social media video of this woman with Alpha News being physically assaulted and told to get out of here because she's documenting what these a-holes are doing, and they don't want that. They don't want people to see, we have no reason to be doing this stuff, but we're doing it, and we're taking advantage of a situation that is actually truly hurtful to people. People that are dying, whether it's at the hands of police or whether it's at the hands of, criminal versus criminal, black on black, whatever it is, it's always tragic. Nobody wants to see anybody die. And by that, I mean nobody wants to even read about somebody dying. But to actually see somebody die in real life is very traumatic. And we're getting a lot of that now. We're getting a lot more of that because of social media, because of smartphones, because of, live streams, Unicorn Riot, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of these things. We're able to actually view somebody dying and almost immediately after it happens. And that is emotionally disturbing, and it's draining, and it's traumatic for people because not all people are designed or have the chemical makeup to be able to withstand that kind of trauma. You and I are different. We're programmed differently, which is why we do the jobs that we do, which is why, you're a Purple Heart recipient, honorable combat wounded war veteran that's been deployed multiple times into combat war zones, and you are able to handle that. I mean, obviously, we talk to people. We see people, which is the responsible thing to do. And anybody who's involved with traumatic things that doesn't talk to somebody about it, I would encourage you to do that. It doesn't make you a weaker or lesser of a person. It's just something that you do. Maybe you don't have somebody at home that you're comfortable talking about things with, then go see a professional. Oftentimes your insurance will cover it. If you don't have insurance, no doubt you're stuck with the shitty Obamacare bronze plan. You're paying out the ass for it, so you might as well use it. Go see somebody. Emotional day here as last night, more violence and more riot outbreaks in Minneapolis. And this is just another testament to the fact that we don't need facts to have an excuse to do things now. Lawlessness and rioting and civil unrest are things that the media loves because it's the sex of the day. And there's no shortage of a story today because the media can oftentimes just perpetuate one or manufacture one by jumping all over something, even if it's false information or limited information or we don't know what actually happened. And independent journalists can lead to that too, because you see something on your smartphone, it's on your live stream, boom, it happened, and now, wham, we got to react, which happened in Minneapolis yesterday. I'm going to show a video in a second, and I want to warn anybody who's actually watching our show here. You're watching, it's not very entertaining really to watch us because we're writing notes, we're looking at computers, we're not really looking into the camera. We're doing a radio show here. I don't get paid for TV, but yet we're doing this thing. So if you want to view us doing our radio show, then by all means, go ahead and view us. And it does help when sometimes we show a video. This particular one, there is no audio either, so I'm going to have to describe to the listeners what it is that we're looking at. But yesterday there was a murder suspect that, due to the good work of police, they were able to catch up with this guy. And when they caught up with him, there was a gunshot wound, and he died. And when the gunshot went off, there was an immediate reaction, and the incident was being filmed by bystanders because there were police involved. There was a black guy that was a suspect. They were approaching this guy. They had their guns out. And, so obviously in the wake of everything law enforcement going on that started with the false narrative of hands up, don't shoot down in Ferguson when Darren Wilson justly and lawfully killed a violent suspect criminal thug, which started the polarization of policing in America. It was no different than with George Floyd, Jamar Clark, Philando Castile, this guy Blake down in Kenosha. The list goes on. And yesterday was no different. And when the gunshot went off, it was immediate reaction to the cops just shot this guy and let's go riot. And it was immediate. Richard and I were working yesterday. We were chasing a rapist of our own on the north side of Minneapolis. We heard the radio traffic start. Hey, there's a group gathering here. The assumption is that this was officer involved, and the civil unrest is starting. They're starting to riot. And then it started at Target. They went in there. They started stealing everything. They went into Haskell's. They went into the liquor stores. They went into the smoke shops. They're stealing blunts and 40s. They went into restaurants. Ruth's Chris, we heard, was on there. The response cars started getting assembled. The coordination with the department yesterday from the radio traffic that we heard was second to none. I was very impressed with the coordination of how quickly SWAT got down there. Mutual aid from New Hope, Robbinsdale, State Patrol. I'm sure I'm missing a few. Hennepin County was involved. And I'm sure there were other agencies that offered their support to Minneapolis. And for that, we thank you. It was great. The inspector was on the radio saying, these people need to be arrested. We want arrests. This is an unlawful assembly. If people cross this line, we want them arrested. There was authorized use of force with blast balls and 40s. They were effective. They were extremely effective. And I just was very, very relieved to hear that after hearing the debacle that was in the riots that happened in the wake of the death of George Floyd, which was completely asinine. And we listened to command staff tell officers to stand down. They left them there literally to die while they watched their home, their house be burned down completely out of line. And the elected officials, the mayor walked away from them. The governor was slow on the National Guard response, which, by the way, the National Guard was deployed really quickly last night. People don't realize how much time it takes and the coordination that it takes. And that's one thing I will say about the communist do-nothing Governor Tim Walz, is one thing about him, even though his military experience is a complete blunder, and he's a terrible leader in every sense of the word, what he does know is he knows some procedure. And one thing that he did say after the George Floyd deal was, I don't think people realize how much effort and coordination goes into actually deploying a National Guard unit. There's a lot of communication that has to happen there. I mean, these personnel are at home with their family. They're sleeping. They're not all at drill, just sitting there waiting like firefighters in a firehouse. They're doing their own thing. And then to get them all together, to get them the proper armament, to get them the proper ballistic stuff and the shields and everything else, and then get them into the city of Minneapolis, provide them with the information of what's going on, why they're needed, where to go, who to meet with, and then deploy after that. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, Richard, and you being a Minnesota National Guardsman with the Red Bulls, you would have some inside information to that. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. Am I right?
Yeah, and I imagine what happened was that the governor put out an alert order too, and it looked like it was the 257th MP company. So I imagine the commander got a call and said, have your people on standby. And so usually it goes by time increments.
Sure.
Right. The alert order means that you need to be within so many hours of reporting to the armory with all of your shit, your body armor, your helmet.
Watch your mouth.
And the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the call comes in, folks already know, the soldiers already know where they need to be, how long they have to get there. And I think that we overheard on the radio that the guard will be here in 90 minutes. So I would imagine that from no warning to actually having soldiers on site is probably about 4 hours ish.
Mm-hmm.
And don't quote me on that because I'm just a ground pounder, so I don't really know 100% of the procedure. But the way that it's structured is in layers.
Yeah.
So it's not just get called in the middle of the night, get out of bed and get to the armory.
Yeah. So the radio traffic started with us hearing, and we were just doing our own business, but we overheard on the Minneapolis channel that there was an incident downtown and that there was a group gathering and that they believed that the assumption from the public was that this was officer involved. I'm going to show a video right now, and I want to warn those of you who are actually watching us that this is a very disturbing video. Anytime you watch somebody die is terrible. So anyway, what we're seeing here is we're seeing... okay, so everybody's putting their hands up and they're running away. You just see the guy fall, okay? He's been shot. And then here comes the officers. They have their guns out. Now we're going to show it in slow motion. You see that the guy is coming up here in the white T-shirt with the backpack on, and he's standing there. There's a group sitting around. They all throw their hands up, and they start to back away from this guy. And I'm assuming that is because the officers were coming. They were coming towards this guy. They had their guns out. I'll tell you what they later learned. But going back to this video, there he is. He's standing there. He's digging in his pocket, and then boom. And he falls to the ground. You can clearly see that he puts a pistol in his mouth and he takes his own life. What people hear? Go ahead, Richard.
When you watch the video, if you're looking in the window of the building, you can see the gun in his hand, and you can see him take it out. I believe he cocks it, puts it around in the chamber. But he's doing something with it, so you can clearly see that he has a gun in his hand if you look through the reflection of the window.
Yeah, and then you see his actual hat blows off the top of his head, and then he falls to the ground. And so somebody was videotaping this thing, and if you're not the bystander that's sitting right there next to him, you just hear a gunshot. You see cops with their guns out. You see a black guy on the ground. Okay, I mean. Yep. You can assume certain things, but it was rather quickly communicated to bystanders by officers on the scene, this guy took his own life. And they have to do that now because of the polarized environment that we're in. Under normal circumstances, 10 years ago, an officer would have said, hey, beat it. Get out of here. It's none of your business. But the transparency thing is big now because of the false narrative of systemic racism in law enforcement, the lies about hands up, don't shoot, the political group of terrorists, Black Lives Matter, who really don't even care about black lives. They're a political group. Because of and the media and elected officials like the turd Jacob Fry up there in Minneapolis, because of this polarization, the police are now not only required to do their job and make sure that they go home at night, but now to communicate to the public exactly what they're doing every step and hold their hand through the policies and procedures that police are taking on the scene of a tragedy. And then they're trying to save this guy's life. They're on top of him. They're doing life-saving measures, CPR, fire rescues on the way. And so the perception from somebody, say, across the street or down the block that hears the gunshot and they turn and look at it, they see cops on top of a black guy who's clearly bleeding from the head. They heard a gunshot, and the assumptions begin. And then the riots ensued. And there was absolute, complete devastation downtown, which it absolutely helps nothing. It solves nothing. And anybody who is of sound mind knows that. We were up on the north side as the riots were starting. There is a big narrative that black people hate the police and that police and the black community have this contentious relationship with tons of tension. You and I know firsthand that is absolutely not the case. We were at Broadway in Lindale at the Winter gas station last night when the riots were ensuing, and one of the first communications that we had with a black dude was him getting out of his car, walking up, pointing at us and saying, "You guys be safe." No, seriously, you guys be safe. We need y'all out here. And he was pointing at us, and then the off-duty cop that was working at the Winter gas station, they contract the police there to provide security, in uniform and to try to keep things at bay. It's a large gathering area. There's always rival gang members there together. There's, drunken people from the Merwin Liquor across the street that flood over into that parking lot. It's just kind of to ensure that if there's a fight that breaks out, that there's an officer there. And, to provide safety. That's what officers do, which is another way to debunk the theory of let's get rid of them, let's disband them. Less cops means more safety. It's just a bunch of BS. But you heard some of this radio traffic, Richard, last night. What were you most impressed with the way that the response happened?
Well, I think that my comment was that the radio traffic and the way that the command and control was going was a whole lot more organized and calm for the most part than radio traffic I experienced, for example, in the midst of a firefight. Although, a firefight in a combat zone is probably more hectic. There's a whole lot more things going on. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of these officers were in panic mode. They were outnumbered. They were, getting things thrown at them. The cop that was down, the video was on Facebook. He got hit in the back of the head with the cover of a trash can that's on the side of the street. It's a big metal.
Okay, so
object.
you just learned that this morning then, because we did hear officer down, and we did end up hearing that he was okay, that he was removed from the scene. I just didn't know what happened. So he was hit with a metal trash can lid.
Yeah, those ones that are out, the cement trash cans, and they have the screw-on metal lid.
Oh, yeah. Those things are heavier than hell.
Yeah, he got hit in the back of the head with that. Dropped him like a sack of shit.
Watch your mouth. My God, and so here he is down there trying to protect people from this mayhem, and then they start, and we did hear a lot of that these groups are becoming aggressive. They're coming at us. They're emboldened a lot more, these rioters, than before. And the comment that I made when we were up on the north side and we were talking to these people, and by the way, asked them, what do you think about defunding the police? And they all said, no, absolutely not. We need y'all here. And we know that because we're up there. I would encourage Jacob Fry to get into a squad car and go ride around. And he does it for photo ops, right? No, I mean really ride around and talk to your constituents. The city council, I would encourage those flubs to do the same thing. Those worthless piles of crap. These people are absolutely clueless, and all they care about is their own reelection. They don't care about the north side. They don't care about Powderhorn. They don't care about black people. They don't care about immigrants. They care about reelection. They care about making a name for themselves and saying controversial things and capitalizing on a crisis or as many crises as possible and creating a system of civil unrest where they can pick and choose their narratives and try to appease everybody. And they're pissing a lot of people off. I'm telling you that right now. With this whole defund the police, disband the department, less cops on the street, they're pissing off a lot of these people. And I think that eventually the rioting is going to turn on them. And I can't wait until it does. I don't wish harm on many people or anybody for that matter. But I can't wait until these city council people and this mayor, we did see it, when he was booed off of a stage or sent Jacob, go home, Jacob, but that was because he said that he wouldn't defund and disband. But let's keep in mind that the people that were pressuring him to say that he would are not people that even live in the city of Minneapolis. They're paid people by George Soros and all of these other people that, Black Lives Matter is a political group, and they bring in a lot of dough from these donations, which I encourage you to go there. Go to the website yourself. You can connect the dots and take you to where the money goes. And we see that the largest recipient of funds from that political group, Black Lives Matter, is Biden for president. So, who, by the way, is the biggest racist in the world. We've covered that. We all know that. But the political pressure that's enhanced by media coverage forces responses from people like Jacob Fry, and we're going to look at that. Yesterday, they were talking about the new use of force policy. Here is Mayor Jacob Fry.
That is why today we are sharing with you an overhaul to the Minneapolis Police Department's use of force policy. If a non-lethal alternative is available to an officer, that option should be taken.
They do it already.
Even with non-deadly force situations, using a minimum level of force is essential for building community trust.
All right, I've heard enough. This is just more typical Jacob Fry. This is the guy who, by the way, was out there in the streets doing the whatever that stupid dance is, that line dance, the stupid shuffle, whatever the hell that thing was. I don't
River
even,
dance?
No, it was. I don't know what it was. He just Googled YouTube Jacob Fry dancing with black people.
I'm good.
Yeah, and that was him out there just trying to placate to them, basically calling them stupid. Oh, if I do this, I'll pander to you. It's similar to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer throwing on the kente cloths and kneeling. They probably don't know the origin of them or that it represents just one particular tribe or, it's just stupid. And he's calling you stupid by going out there and doing this. And then the fake crying that he did at the George Floyd casket was ridiculous. I mean, the guy is not an Emmy Award winner and should never be. It's just, he should never be considered for any type of an acting job at all. So, Fry, when your political career crashes and burns like the Lolita Express and you find yourself serving cookies in some washed up diner at, I don't even know where. The point is, he's going nowhere. And,
Right.
And then so here he is again, and you could see him with his whole mood shift and how this is tragic. And really, he didn't say anything that was utterly earth-shaking about this use of force policy change, because these are all things police do already.
Yeah.
They consider...
Aren't the reporting requirements already pretty stringent for a police officer in any post-incident report?
I mean...
And we know...
Yeah.
Furthermore, we know that law enforcement in general as a whole, there's a lot of discretion that cops need to use. Of course, you need to find a lower form of force before deadly force.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
So
They
now
do it.
you're going to question whether or not your officers even have the ability to practice discretion, and that's complete crap.
I think the biggest thing that he said, and we didn't hear that, but just unholstering your firearm is now considered a use of force because it's intimidating and it's scary. So we want you to not be prepared to be shot at. And what's going to be next? You can't shoot your gun until you've been shot or until you've been shot at. You can't use lethal force until one of your partners is bleeding on the ground and dead. And then the other thing was that he made it very clear that under no circumstances is a Minneapolis police officer allowed to shoot at a moving vehicle. We have seen over and over again the actions of heroic cops shooting. I saw one of them actually where the cop was driving, pursuing another vehicle at high speeds, took his weapon out while he's driving and was able to shoot the driver while they were going at high speeds, and then the driver crashed into a building. And I mean, that takes a lot of skill, and he stopped somebody that was by no means considering the safety of the public. We all know that collateral damage is a thing. Sometimes unintended bystanders get hurt. That's a reality of the world that we live in. But I think that these policies, like policies of all over the country, what they're going to start doing is putting officers at great unnecessary risk, and that will lead to more deaths of more police officers in our coming times. Coming up in the second half, we have Kenneth Udoibok. He is a civil rights attorney and was formerly a prosecutor in charge of the juvenile unit here in Minnesota, and we're going to talk to him about the kid that's charged from the Kenosha protest shootings. More PC Radio straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
We will force votes.
We will not stop.
Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f***?
Impeachment.
Impeachment.
This is madness.
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute.
Hey, it's Stu Peters for Johnson Jewelers, and I'm always proud to talk on behalf of Johnson Jewelers. You know why? Because I have shopped there, and I am 100% happy with the items that I've purchased. They're good quality, they shine, they sparkle, they last, but what's most impressive about Johnson Jewelers is their ability to do custom design. Custom design services at Johnson Jewelers is just one thing that they do to make them different from everybody else. Anybody can sell a diamond, right? But to actually get somebody who can custom make something for you. You know, you have that old pendant that you got from grandma. You have the birthstone from your grandpa's something or other, and you store it in some safety deposit box, and you've basically forgotten about it. Johnson Jewelers can make something happen with that. Simply visit them at johnsonjewelers.com or give them a call at 651-735-4400. Karen and her wonderful staff will take care of you. They are awesome. They are family owned. They're in Woodbury, Minnesota, but they can take care of you anywhere. A couple of exchanged emails and phone calls, and the custom piece can be delivered right to you. One of a kind vintage estate. Visit them online at johnsonjewelers.com. johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com.
Get to know them. Grow to love them. Love to hate them.
Son of a bitch.
Hey, I will not permit you to talk that way. Hey, put it down.
No. Crazy.
That's right. Come on, not in front of your friends.
I'm not afraid of you.
Stewie and Richie. PC Radio.
Welcome back. The second segment of the Patriotically Correct radio show, and it's no news to you. If it's news to you, you've been living under a rock. But there was a 17-year-old teen who was charged in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He was arrested in Illinois. A lot of the news reports say that it was because he was trying to flee the state of Wisconsin. The truth is he lives in Illinois, and he lives approximately about 10 miles away or 10 minutes away from where the incident took place in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The incident that we're talking about is when a quote-unquote freedom fighter or anti-protester was in Kenosha to try to assist police, I guess. I don't really know the full intent of his motives here, but he basically was trying to suppress some of the violence and some of the rioting and some of the destruction, looting, burning, robbing, stealing, raping, pillaging that was going on in the wake of the shooting of Mr. Blake by law enforcement in Kenosha, Wisconsin. His name is, Kyle
Wittenhouse.
All right. And so he's been arrested and he's been charged. We'll take a look at him here. This is him if you're watching us on the OpsLens app or if you're viewing us on social media. He's a white 17-year-old teen. You can see him there. He was holding what appears to be an M4 format AR-15 type rifle, and he was there. That's the picture of him. What you don't see on the media a lot right now, you kind of have to do a little bit more digging to see him actually being stomped in the face, assaulted, smashed over the head with a skateboard. And then there's another picture of him with a guy standing over him who had a gun to his head. He's been arrested and charged with first-degree murder, premeditated intentional murder, and he's being held. I don't know what his bond is on that, but we're going to discuss that as we get that information. The charge was a little bit surprising. I actually said when they first came out with it, they said, developing or breaking 17-year-old teen charged in shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And I actually went to social media. I think I was on Twitter and said, God, please don't let this be the kid that defended himself against these rioters and these criminal thugs and these evildoers in Kenosha. Turned out later it was. But you know what? I'm not an attorney, and that's why we have professionals and we have contributors here, because on the Patriotically Correct radio show, we want to always be in relentless search of the truth. So we bring in today Kenneth Udoibok. Kenneth is a criminal defense and civil rights attorney in Minnesota. Udoibok served as a deputy county attorney division head and in charge of juvenile prosecution in the St. Louis County Attorney's Office in Duluth, Minnesota. He brings a ton of experience to us. Kenneth, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, too. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And just for full disclosure, I have met Kenneth. I know Kenneth. I know him personally, not at great lengths. We haven't dined together, but I would like to. I would like to, because I find our conversations always to be interesting, and I find you to be incredibly knowledgeable, and I value your time, and so that for that we appreciate you being here, and we want to get right into this. So we're looking here at this Kyle Wittenhouse, who has been charged in, I believe he would be charged in Wisconsin, being that the incident happened on the streets of Kenosha. But this is breaking. He's been charged with first-degree murder. Is this charge something are they overcharging in this case, in your opinion?
Well, see, I'm going to put two hats on. One, my prosecutor hat, and this would have been one of the worst cases you want to see on your desk, because the facts are so moving. I have watched some social media, and by my watching, that don't mean I know all the facts, but it looked like there was just pandemonium. There were a lot of people with guns, long guns. There were people running around. There's a lot of shooting. So I don't know where this kid falls in. So I could not readily have charged him with first degree.
Right.
I would have charged him with something
in order at least
to survive a constitutional challenge while I investigate. But right away, I saw one video. It looked like he had fallen.
Yes.
And there's a guy charging at him, and he's on the ground with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of, as a defense attorney now, I'm saying, well, come on. The guy's on the ground. Is that self-defense? We have to think about that. I don't have all the facts, but I can tell you this. This is a worst case scenario for a prosecutor. One, the kid is only 17 years old. How did he get this gun? Number two, what really happened? Why is he fleeing? Were people attacking him? And a 17-year-old is pretty young to make these type of life decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kenneth. I think that that was one thing that I thought about as well. This individual is 17 years old, standing on the streets with an assault rifle. Now, there were videos and reports of these so-called freedom fighters that were protecting the businesses and the property there in Kenosha, and I believe that's what he was doing there. And also yesterday on the news, it was said that these freedom fighters had went to the county sheriff and asked to be deputized so that they could legally be out defending these places. And the sheriff was quoted as saying, "Hell no."
Yeah, I saw that too. But let's be really careful about this. I know we cannot equate property with human rights, but look,
if I'm working all my life and I have this little
kiosk, and that's all I have, mm-hmm. and I probably don't have enough insurance, and you're going to burn it down. You're destroying my life. But at the same time, I didn't realize that in Wisconsin, even though I went to college in Wisconsin, I didn't realize that there's so many freedom fighters who are not licensed law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I think that's really troubling because they may not have the patience of police officers or trained deputies, and this may be an occasion for it, where you have the 17-year-old motivated for whatever reason to have to protect whatever property and feels this onslaught, or is it verbal, physical, challenges, and he hasn't developed the faculty yet to react reasonably. And those are all defenses, as a matter of fact. So in a riotous condition, what type of obligation would you give a 17-year-old?
Right.
With his chaos.
We have a guy that comes on the show every Friday. We've had him on more recently because of the polarization of law enforcement. We know him here as Joe the Cop, and we protect his anonymity because he's a 23-year veteran law enforcement officer who actually still is working as a cop in the United States. He's a pretty good articulator of things, and he wrote to date that this is the most thorough article, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he said there's two unknown variables to me at this time. The first unknown is what happened with Rittenhouse prior to the video footage of him shooting the two thugs in the middle of the street. We know that he first killed another rioter at the car dealership before fleeing that scene. Yes, but I'm not clear on those circumstances. The media has painted Rittenhouse as an active shooter. Okay, so he continues on by saying, even with the first unknown variable, I will say that Rittenhouse's actions are not consistent with an active shooter who's looking for a body count. If that had been the case, he would have just kept on shooting more rioters when he was at the car dealership. I've never heard of an active shooter who willingly gave up his tactical advantage and fled from a scene with his back to his victims, thereby leading him to being assaulted and nearly beaten to death. So we heard your hat as the criminal prosecutor who you were in charge of juvenile prosecution. He is a juvenile. We heard your concerns about him being 17 years old and having access to a firearm. As a criminal defense attorney, given these variables, what to what Joe said, to that you say what?
Well, if I'm a criminal defense attorney, I happen to have been both. If I'm a criminal defense attorney, I don't see how the offense is premeditated. It's not. Well, there's a video that I saw. He's running away. He's running backwards and articulating the scenario or the scene saying, I didn't shoot nobody. I didn't shoot nobody. I didn't shoot nobody. Is he falsely accused of shooting somebody? And then the mob comes close to him and he has to protect himself? That's a possibility, assuming that I can articulate why a 17-year-old would have an assault rifle on the street in the first place.
Right. And that's another thing, too. I mean, they have an ironclad case against him if possession of a firearm by a juvenile is illegal in Wisconsin. They have a case there. And as putting your prosecutor hat back on, you have that at very minimum. I don't know that that's going to appease these rioting thugs because they're going to want to go after the full gamut of first-degree intentional homicide.
You see, Stu, this is the point. You know, when I first started, I said this is a scenario you don't want to have as a prosecutor, where the emotions are so high. They're on both victim side and perpetrator side. Emotions are so high. Now, if a prosecutor reacts to that, that is the beginning of a failing prosecution, because we cannot appease a mob. We cannot base our selection of cases on public opinion, even political positions, or to appease anyone that is not connected to the case. The person or the people we're concerned about as a prosecutor, in the case of state, in case of Wisconsin, is the state of Wisconsin. That is the person that you are most concerned about to protect. The next person you protect are the victims. The interests of the victim, interest of the state and interest of the victims. Those are primary. It doesn't matter what percentage of the population dislike the case or want you to prosecute. That shouldn't move you at all. At the same time, it doesn't matter how many people will ask you not to prosecute. Majority of the people might like this assailant. And you cannot base your prosecution on that. It would be the mere facts. And as we sit here today, the facts are evolving. And that's why we need to pause.
Do you as a prosecutor, do you look at, I mean, so it's, you gotta determine who is the victim, first of all. Right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, that's what the investigation. Yeah, who's the victim? Look, it could very well be. Let me give you another scenario. Assuming he has whatever plausible reason to carry a firearm on the street, and he's 17 years old. 10 guys, or however number, one with a handgun, one with a pistol, whatever violent object they may have, come at this young man, would you ask him not to use that weapon? No, you couldn't ask him not to.
Right.
All right? That's one scenario. So, but if he intended, and apparently there's some conversation that he had expressed some violent intent, if the state can show that as a prosecutor, if I have that, and it's unimpeachable, then I can charge. My point is, what's at stake? You have him in custody. What's at stake?
Right.
To wait to get more evidence.
There's there's a lot of things circulating because there's going to be people obviously who are siding with this kid and they're saying, hey, he was defending himself. And then there's going to be people who are calling Huber the victim. This is the guy that died. Huber had a violent and lengthy criminal history. He lived violently. He died violently. That's usually how this stuff works. His girlfriend shows a picture of him, obviously smiling, and then depicts him as, the smart, kind, loving, amazing skateboarder, and she's asking everyone to go to the skate park and pay their respects to him by skating in his honor. In the meantime, you have people that are saying, "Hey, this kid has been overcharged. This is insane." Which is I can empathize with whoever is prosecuting by what you're saying. This thing landing on my desk, and I'm not an attorney by any means, but what a nightmare that would be. What is the next step for the prosecutors here? I mean, evidence gathering obviously is really important here, but at some point they're going to have to come out and say, "Yep, nope, we're sticking with this." Or do you anticipate that there will probably be a reduction of charges, maybe murder 2? Is he going to be tried as a juvenile? Will he be tried as an adult? What are they going to look at there? Because the kid is a juvenile.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, he's 17, but it's not difficult to certify him as an adult, considering the gravity of the offense that he's allegedly been accused of. So I don't have any doubt that he could be certified as an adult. The bigger question is this: after all is said and done, and you've gathered all the video, you've questioned witnesses, and at some point you are going to put significant people and time and space relating to this offense. And prosecutors have the flexibility of enhancing a charge or reducing it. They can. For me, this is when I was heading the juvenile division. There's something I used to tell prosecutors. In fact, I taught a class on this, and that is,
I expect prosecutors
to get 100% conviction. Why? Because you charge properly. You charge well. If someone committed an offense and you have the evidence, you charge him or her, and the jury would convict because it's the truth. The facts are plain. But when you have questions about certain facts, the role of a prosecutor is not to get a conviction. The role of a prosecutor is to facilitate through your office public safety. And so the outcome is of no interest to you. You are sort of a process server. Someone committed an offense, the facts fit, you present it to a jury, they convict or not convict. Your job is done. But, at the end, you want the victim to have respect for you. You want the defendant to respect what you did because you did the right thing. They know. See, defendants know if they committed the crime. They know it. Mm-hmm. And so when you present the truth as he or she saw it, they respect that.
And I think you bring up a good point because in a situation like this unrest, the civil unrest, it is a very highly emotional situation, a very highly emotional case surrounding all these facts. And, it's kind of refreshing to hear somebody such as yourself, who was a prosecutor, who people usually condemn right away because you're on the side of the government, to commit to the truth. It's an interesting fact that when you say, the outcome is not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about making sure that the truth comes out and charging appropriately.
Yep. If you do that, we have respect. See, I've always believed that it doesn't matter whether I'm a criminal defense attorney or a prosecutor. we have the same goals. And the goal is to uphold the law. If my client is culpable, I'm going to present fact to show that he's not, as a defense attorney. But at the end of the day, a fair-minded people rendered an opinion. The trouble I have, like in this case, already in an occasion like this, there are innocent people, allegedly innocent people, dead, harmed, and a young kid whose life is going to be altered.
Yeah, absolutely. On the phone with us right now is Kenneth Udoibok. He's a criminal defense and civil rights attorney, and a damn good one, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He served as a deputy county attorney division head and was in charge of juvenile prosecution in the St. Louis County Attorney's Office in Duluth prior to coming down and blessing us with his presence here. You say that you bring up a good point, is that everybody's lives here have been altered by this incident. And that includes, Rittenhouse, he took somebody's life, possibly 2 lives. Yes. We don't know for sure. And then you look at the families of the deceased, and it doesn't really matter if they were complete a-holes and criminal thugs. Mm-hmm. The fact is that they had a mom and dad that loved them, and those people are going to grieve. We're looking at, I'm looking currently at a guy by the name of Joseph Rosenbaum, who was allegedly shot and killed at the car dealership in Kenosha prior to the shooting that was caught on tape by Rittenhouse out in the streets when he was attacked by the skateboarder with a gun. It still hasn't been determined that Rosenbaum was 100% killed by Rittenhouse or by somebody else. He was a registered sex offender, and he had a very lengthy criminal history. Also, he was down there to riot. He was engaging in criminal activity when he was there during the civil unrest. Does any of that get taken into account when you're charging this, or do you look at Rittenhouse as his own thing, and it doesn't matter about the criminal history of the people that he was allegedly defending himself against?
Well, if I'm charging a case, the person's background should not be relevant. Just as when we're trying the case, the person that is a victim now. Let me use, for example, a case of sexual assault. The fact that a guy may have been promiscuous or the woman may have been promiscuous doesn't justify sexual assault. All right. Well, the only time it might come to play is if that person's background was relevant in the commission of that offense. Mm-hmm. All right. So if
Rittenhouse had a background that was, if he had a background of, say, assault, or if he had been kicked out of school multiple times for fighting, or if there were concerns with school liaison officers that he had threatened violence in the school, or something like that, might come into play when you're prosecuting him. Is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when the background becomes relevant. So really, in this particular case, the charging of Rittenhouse as the shooter, the only background you're really looking into as a prosecutor is him. What about as the criminal defense attorney? As a defense attorney, are you going to try to articulate that, look, these were not just innocent bystanders, these were violent criminals with extensive violent histories?
If I'm defending the shooter, right? I don't want anything about his background to even come to play. I don't want just look at the scene, look at what happened. Look at this guy. Here's someone chasing him. Here's someone cursing at him. Here's someone breaking that natural boundaries we have of comfortability. He's coming real close. Look at all this stimuli that he's getting. He is afraid for his life. And the only thing he has, and what I would even say, maybe he didn't even intend to shoot. He just, it's a reflective action, and it pops one out. Apparently, I don't know how many shots he sent off.
Yeah, I guess I don't know that either.
Yeah, so who knows? So that's why it's dangerous. No, I don't want to use the word dangerous. It's risky when you start with first. Prefer to start with maybe third, then you can go up. Mm-hmm. Third, second, then you can go up. If the facts are solid. But, to go with first to appease groups of people as a prosecutor, it's not the the best advice. Well, I don't have all the evidence as they do, but sometimes, Stu, it could be good for a defense attorney too when you start off so high, and then when the evidence comes in, you can't meet that high threshold, and you lose the case because you overcharge. So you can go either way.
It's all very interesting to me.
Yeah, me too. And is winning or losing a case, it affects people's careers. Criminal defense attorneys, obviously, they make more money, they get more business because they have notoriety and they have high profile cases. This is going to be a very high profile case that a lot of people are going to follow. Or is it not? Because people are moving past that and they're on to the next crisis in today's day and age. Is this something that could potentially be handled between the criminal defense and the prosecutors outside of a trial?
Well, there's always that possibility. I think, I tell my colleagues and even my practice is when I go to trial, if it's criminal or even civil, it's because I have exhausted every opportunity to resolve it between ourselves. It's always better that way. Wouldn't you? If you have a problem with someone and both of you come to a consensus that you all agree, rather than put it in the hands of a set of people that you haven't met, and in fact they try to make sure you haven't met, and you haven't spoken to, and they don't know you except for the little that the judge is going to allow them to know about you. And they have to make this decision about your life. And I would rather, make it with people that I trust. And so we try to settle these cases. But sometimes, we're so far apart, civilly and criminal, that you have to present it to a jury.
Kenneth Udoibok, criminal defense and civil rights attorney in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We can't thank you enough for your time. We value your time. We know that you're very busy. If you need to get some representation criminally or civilly, you can call Kenneth anytime. His phone line is always open at 612-808-6031. We'll also put a link to his website on our social media pages and accounts. It's KENU, the letter U, law, LAW.com. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Kenneth. We appreciate your time. And God bless you. All right, I think we lost him. Intern boy is so quick to hang up the phone, and then he's flashing different things on the screen. Kenneth brings a really interesting perspective to this. I mean, when you're charging a kid, like Rittenhouse, it's an emotional experience. I mean, people are dead. They're criminal thugs. You and I know that. But at the end of the day, that can't be, like Kenneth said, that can't be taken into account on the actual murder charge. I think he's right, though. I think that they charge this thing to appease. I think that they charge this thing too high. I think it's going to be the burden of proof that this kid premeditatedly said. I mean, unless he was on some social media account, which I think would be out there, there'd be screenshots in the media everywhere because, they're going to try to frame this as he's a racist killer, even though I think both of the victims are white people. But he's going to be some mass shooter that the Hollywood liberals will pick this up, and then the media will go with that, and they're going to try to paint this kid as being this murderous heathen who was looking for a body count. But like Joe the cop articulated on his social media accounts, that's just not true. And I think that if it were true, we would see that, here's screenshots of him saying, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to kill these people, or I'm looking for a body count, or I'm going to go, whatever.
There's a lot of cameras going down there.
Interesting times that we're living in, Richard Leonard, and it's fun to be able to sit here and discuss this stuff every day and get the input of professionals. It's also very mentally and emotionally draining. Final word for the day. What's your final word? We got to go.
Final word is get all the truth.
Here's what's up to it. Here's what's down to it. Here's to any way you can get to it. Here's to those that don't do it. May they be dragged to it, tied to it, or forced to it. And here's to us who do it, because we're the ones that's used to it. Remember, lay low and avoid the radar. One day they're going to come for the car, and when they do, save the radio!
Twitter blew up. More offensive than a presidential tweet.
Russia, China, Japan, Mexico, all countries will respect us far more than they do under past administrations.
PC Radio with Stu and Rich. Mojo 50 Radio.